This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, everybody. Well, we want to welcome you back to another episode of Field Note Fridays, powered by Springfield Armory. And on today's episode, we got Mr. Terron Bauer on to talk whitetail activity report for Kansas and Nebraska. So, Terron, you've been on the podcast before, so I don't think there's any need for another huge introduction. But, man, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah, man, happy to have you back. Always love to talk deer hunting with you. And so before we, start talking Kansas and Nebraska, tell us a little bit how your season has been going so far.
My season, in a nutshell, has basically been, let's just go with a disaster. It's been a fun one, but it's been a humbling one. As far as deer activity and stuff like that, it was a really, really tough rut. There were days where it was like, man, it's gonna take off. This is the start of it. And then we'd get a hot, windy day and things would shut right back off. And then a couple of days later we'd get, some cold temps and it was like, all right, here we go. We're going to get a good stretch and then it'd warm right back up. And so, like, as far as rutting activity, it was almost non-existent. And then we kind of got into the lockdown phase, which kind of hit during rifle season, and we had bitter cold temperatures. So guys kind of struggled a little bit during rifle season. The temps were there, but like I said, it was just the phase of the rut that was kind of making it harder for guys to kill. And, my target buck, I had him early on my second sit. I grunted him in and, I could not get a shot at him. Hunted him pretty hard, throughout the rut up until rifle season. He ended up making it through rifle season, which was awesome. I wasn't sure. You're just never sure if they're going to make it through, and he did. So then it was the following Sunday after rifle season closed, a real calm night, and deer were kind of back in that, they had kind of been winding down from the rut, and it was back to food. And the last time I had counted, I think I'd counted 42 deer out on the field.
Dang.
And he was one of them. And I could see, he was feeding hard on corn. And it finally, like I said, it was a really, really calm night. I mean, dead calm. And so I hit the grunt call, and I could tell he was probably making a bunch of noise, with his head down, chewing corn, stuff like that. So he finally picked his head up and was just kind of scanning the field. And, and I hit the grunt call again, pretty loud. And he turned and started coming towards me. And I was like, here we go. This is finally going to happen. And he was way out in the field, and I was like, dang it, he's gonna hit my wind. And he did, and stood there for a few, kind of nose up a little bit, and turned and started walking back. And I was like, I'm just gonna let him be now. And this was out of the exact same stand that I'd grunted him in earlier at.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like he just changed his mind, and he was like, you know what, I'm coming. And he turns and starts walking and gets on my travel corridor. And I'm like, this is going to be a chip shot. It's going to be 17 yards. He's going to be standing at the mock scrape. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to, let him start hitting my mock scrape, making a little noise before I try to draw on him. Because it was dead calm. And he gets off the travel corridor and starts headed towards the river. And I drew back, grunted to stop him, and like right as I'm grunting, like right before I was getting ready to grunt to stop him, he heard me draw, and so he kind of locked up, turned, and was quartering away a little bit, and I thought I'd settled my pins, but long story short, I ended up hitting him in front of the front shoulder into the neck.
Oh.
I misread the shot just a little bit. I thought I hit him high shoulder just as when he spun, and I saw how much of the arrow was sticking out. I kind of thought, okay, I hit higher than I wanted, but it's shoulder, and if I can get 6 to 8 inches of penetration, I'll be fine. But long story short, we ended up the next morning. We went and started looking for him, and we ran out of blood, and I was down in the dumps, and my cousin has access to all my trail cameras, on the apps. And he goes, we're wasting our time. You got pictures of him, at a stand that I call Pinch. And so I was like, shoot. And, like, well, it looks like he's not going to die. I probably only missed the jugular by like 2 inches, 3 inches, maybe.
Man.
So, that was a Monday morning when we trailed him. And then, I didn't get another picture of him until the next Friday. So I was kind of starting to get a little bit nervous, but I still felt, like I was going to be fine, that it was non-fatal. And then I just went another 10 days without a picture of him. And I finally got another picture of him this morning back at that stand where I hit him.
Dang.
So that was good to see. I've got a Kansas tag, and, like we were talking before, I've been bouncing back and forth to Nebraska and Kansas, and Kansas has been tough. Just not a lot of good bucks down there this year.
Yeah. So
I probably should spend the last few days here of season focusing on Nebraska, because I think the main reason why I haven't been getting him on camera is because he's probably not moving very far from bed to food, because we're obviously at that stage now where, rut's over, the second rut, with the does coming in the second time, and the smaller ones, that's kind of over too, and it's rebuilding the bodies. So
yeah,
what I need to do is spend, a couple days from afar watching the cornfield and seeing where he's coming out, and try to move in and get him killed before season gets over.
Yeah.
But
man, this, hearing you talk about your season and everything, it's kind of, I've talked to some people who've had some wildly good success and, have had that good season, but then it seems like the majority of folks I've talked to, it's been a weird year in the deer woods for a lot of people. And we've had some weird, funky weather, like I can remember, late October, early November, I was talking with a couple of folks that are, up in the Midwest and Northeast, that they're talking about how it was unseasonably warm. They had temps in the 70s. And the crazy thing was, down in Texas around that time, I was experiencing like January type weather where, we're having highs in the 40s, low 50s. It's getting super cold at night. And so it's kind of funny how it just seemed like things were flip-flopped across the nation. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, for today's podcast, you and I kind of talked a little bit beforehand. You've been hunting Kansas, you've been hunting Nebraska. And so I want to talk to those guys that are headed out to their deer lease right now, or they're going to be hunting over, they've got this next week. Christmas is coming up. A lot of guys will take that whole week off and, they spend time with family. And then there's some guys that they really, they do that family time, but then they're out in the stand too. So, kind of tell us, what have you been seeing over the past week or so with your properties in Kansas and Nebraska? What have those deer been like? Are they in that post-rut phase? Are you seeing any kind of in that second rut, or they're coming back into it because they got hot does? Tell us what the deer are doing, man.
Yeah, what I'm basically seeing now is we just kind of ended that second rut.
Okay.
It seems like all food driven now. In Kansas is a little bit different. Nebraska is all food driven, and I feel like within the next 5 days or so, it's going to be that exact same way in Kansas. We're looking at, Kansas is obviously a little bit south of where I am in Nebraska. So, we've got a couple hours difference there. And that kind of changes the dates just a little bit. So I can always kind of see, what's happening in Nebraska is going to be, happening 3 or 4 days, 5 days later in Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely back to grain and rebuilding bodies. Yeah, like I'm talking to my dad and cousin at nights. My dad lives on the farm there, and there's 40 to 50 deer every night on the corn.
Wow.
So that's definitely what they're going to. And I was looking at the forecast after I talked to you this morning, and it looks like the next couple days we're going to have not really above normal temperatures, probably about average, but they're kind of warmer. So my take is green is going to be good for the next few days here. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like from here on out, I would be focused all on grain. Okay. If your food plots survive the crazy drought and stuff like that, and you've got grain, I would say from now until the end of season, which in Nebraska and Kansas, it's December 31st. My focus is 100% going to be on corn or beans. If you're lucky enough to have standing beans and stuff like that, by all means, spend all your time on that.
Yeah. So that's good to know, because I know a lot of guys are probably wondering, especially the ones that, they may not have been out to their lease or wherever they're getting to hunt. This might be the first time they're getting to hunt for the year for some folks. And so that's definitely some good advice there. If obviously you got that food source, or you have that capability to hit it up and, stand on the food. So when it comes to a setup, I've talked to some guys that, they say, look for the does, the food. There's some guys that they like to set up in between the two, and they've had good experience. Do you like to set up directly on those food plots? Are you trying to set up on travel corridors between food and bed? How are you approaching your stands?
This time of year, I am all on the edge of food. Okay. It's all field edge stuff, just because a lot of your deer are starting to bed closer to that food, just because it's such a routine that every night they're going there. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me where I'm at anyway to press in a little bit, just because chances are you're going to bump deer. And like I was saying, there's 40 and 50 deer coming out in the field. So the last thing, I can do in an evening is press in a little bit. I've got to stay right out on the edge of the field. And the other thing I'm doing too is I'm having somebody pick me up every night. Mm-hmm. The deer on our home farm, they're so used to my dad out on the Polaris, all year long. I mean, he's irrigating and, always out and about. So then the Polaris is just a normal everyday thing that they're used to. So he's basically driving, him or my cousin, they're driving right to the base of my stand on the field edges and picking me up at night. And I'm noticing within minutes, deer are right back on the cell cameras and stuff right there. Yeah. So it's not doing anything, but the worst thing you can do right now is bump those deer. And I've went away from hunting mornings too, just because, it's so hard to get in the mornings. If you do have to access through a field or something like that, you're going to push all the deer off and it's not, it's just not worth it. So my main focus now is all evening hunts.
Have you tried driving in on the mornings? Cause I know there's some guys that, they might say, well, I've got to hunt the mornings. Like, have you tried that before? Yeah. Or
I never have, but I don't I don't necessarily see why it wouldn't work.
Okay.
But my biggest issue is just, being so careful to bump deer right now.
No, I hear you.
Just, because it's not like, if we were having crazy temps and snow cover and stuff like that, but we don't have any snow on the ground or anything like that. So it's not like, it's life or death. They've got to come feed in the daylight. So, if you've got an unpressured area, they're going to feed in daylight. But I think, you start pressuring them and bumping them, and some of those older bucks, may start feeding after dark, just with like I said, with no snow or anything on the ground. I could see that happening.
Yeah, for sure. So I got a question for you. You're talking about getting picked up in the evenings, and I know some guys are probably going to ask this as well. I have had situations where I'm the only one out there. Somebody can't pick me up. And if you're in that kind of situation, will you blow like a deer does to try and get them off the field so they don't associate seeing somebody get out of that stand or that tree?
I don't do that, but I will carry a coyote howl in my pack.
Okay.
And I will coyote howl. And a lot of times that will clear the field just enough to get you to slip out of there.
Okay.
And that works really, really good too.
Okay. I'm going to have to remember that one. I've never thought about that before. So,
yeah.
And I'm sure there's guys out there that have tried that. So, man, it's good to hear that, you've still got that deer alive. You're trying to make a play on them. I hope you get them soon. And man, there's guys out there that I know they're going to listen to this and they're going to take it and they're going to go out and hopefully bag themselves a big buck this weekend. So, Terron, man, I really appreciate your time today for Field Note Fridays and just hopping on and giving us a report for Kansas and Nebraska.
Yeah, man.